Hey there, Scorpio. This is your forecast taking you from Monday the 15th right the way through to Sunday the 21st of December 2025. We are not slowly, actually, we're fast heading up to the end of the year and coming into that Christmas period. I don't know how you're planning on spending it, but it tends to ratchet up the tensions coming into it. And lots of people have family coming in, friends coming in, and all sorts of different plans. So who knows? Who knows what's coming up? But this is a very busy week. In this week ahead, we've got Mars going into the sign of Capricorn. We've got the new moon in Sagittarius in a conjunction with the Galactic Centre. That's aligned to the centre of our galaxy. And we've also, on Sunday the 21st, we've got the solstice. Now, that's the December solstice. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, you're going to be coming into winter. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you're going to be heading straight into sunny Christmas. Now, also, as we come to the end of the week, in fact, actually during the week, but it gets stronger and stronger as we get to the end of the week, we've also got a whole series of exact squares. Now, these squares are already in motion. They're already happening. They're already coming in. But we got exact squares landing on the day of the solstice. What this means, immediately I can see that we're in one of these kind of pressure cookers right now. You know, the old adage that, if you put enough pressure on coal, you'll get a diamond. I actually don't know if that's actually true or not. But that's the kind of energy that's going on for all of us right now. It feels like there's a lot of stuff cooking us. I think it's helping us get really real about like what skills we might need to use, so to me it's saying the time to sit back is over. It's time to let the rubber hit the road. It's time to get into action. And of course, Capricorn is a patient but very determined sign that will take steps forward. So I actually think this week ahead is going to help you and me, because I've also got Scorpio rising, by the way, but it's going to help us, let's say, it's going to help us collate all of our recent experiences and come into the idea of where we're going, from what we've observed about ourselves and experienced. And from our lived experience, we're going to know what steps we're going to move forwards with in the next season. So I think it's an important week. And it's full of action. And next week is not, like the week after, the week of Christmas. It's a little bit more relaxed. So there's a lot going on in this week in particular. So anyway, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. As ever, I'm going to start by bringing up my slides, but I haven't actually loaded them up. 1 second. And here it is. I always start just by sharing a little bit of thanks to the people that support my channel. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So I've got two charts lined up to describe this week ahead from a Scorpio perspective. Now, when you look at your birth chart, do you see that you've got Scorpio and the symbol for Sagittarius in this first wedge? This is called the first house. If you're new to astrology, you got one, like the first house, second, third, fourth, right the way through to the 12th house. We're always counting from 9 o'clock as you're looking at it. And this is using a whole sign Western tropical model, which means there's one sign in each house. But if you've got Sagittarius in your first house as well, then have a listen to that forecast, because that's going to really resonate as well. But anyway, so we've got Scorpio here, and you'll notice that as we enter this week, we've got Mars, we've got the Sun, Venus, and Mercury all in the second house. And the moon is just in the last part of Libra. And as we come to the end of this forecast period, you'll see that the moon is coming in here. There you go. It's just coming in right at the end of Capricorn. You'll also notice that both Mars and the Sun have just come into Capricorn. So there's a bit of a shift going on from the second house to the third house. That's significant. And you'll also see these short red lines. These are all the squares that I'm talking about. These are quite challenging. We've got this square here as well. Let's not forget that one. So anyway, if you ever look down this list, you'll see that there's a lot going on between the 20th and the 21st. That's Saturday and Sunday of the week coming up. So, this is where we're going to need to have as much energy as possible. And also, coming into the new moon, this is a time when we tend to slow down. We don't want to be quite so social necessarily. We want to tidy things up, neaten things up, tune in and zone out. We don't want to necessarily have to do everyone else's thinking for them. This is a time when everyone should be kind of responsible for themselves. So don't be too worried if you're just not feeling very like Christmassy, or if you can't be bothered. I understand. This is a good time to take some time for yourself. Now, on this first day, the moon goes into the sign of Scorpio, and at the same time, Mars comes into the sign of Capricorn. It's a really strong day. It's really emphasizing the first house, which is about you and your personality, and the third house, which is community. Now, the second house is about your resources, your earnings, your attitudes to money, but also how you feel about yourself in terms of self-esteem. Like, do you value yourself as much as you value money? Do you think you're worth being paid? And so we're going on this journey, or maybe completing this journey of our self-concept, our self-value, as we hit into the community space, which is what's coming up. And so on this first day, and through to Wednesday the 17th, what you'll most likely find is that there's this new kind of rocket that's being put up underneath your butt cheeks. Is like about to propel you forwards. With the moon in your first house, you're going to be feeling really quite fired up, and you'll be wearing your emotions on your sleeve, but you'll be really feeling things so that you can't ignore them. And I think that's quite helpful. It's going to help you really see what's important, and anything that's not important is going to really sort of drop out of view. And with Mars coming into the third house, most likely there's some incisive social strikes you need to take. It's not to say you're actually going to strike anyone socially necessarily, but what I mean is you might want to be very purposeful about how social or sharing you are. Do you want to be thrown into the center of things without any boundaries? I don't think so. Mars is quite good at having boundaries. So he goes in, he knows what he's doing, he gets out. A bit like, I think, in the military, there will be code words to get in. You do your operation, and then there's an extraction team coming to get you out. Obviously, I've got no military experience. That's just what I've picked up from films from the 1980s. But anyway, to me, it feels like everything needs to have a time when you need to get out. Maybe you need a code word with your partner if you're going to places, so that they clearly know when you're done and when you're moving on to the next thing. So you might be really sort of busy doing stuff out and about, but you have to know when you get extracted, when you extract yourself from situations, and you can carry on with a great deal of purpose. Now, on Wednesday, the 17th, the sun comes into an exact square with Saturn. This is interesting because, the sun in the second house really shows that you're in this current journey of value and how you value yourself and what's going on with your money. And with Saturn in the fifth house, the fifth house is about your children, or it's about your creativity, like what you've birthed. And it also does also work in terms of new relationships, because you're kind of birthing those as well. It's a very sort of creative, passionate, joyful place. And so Saturn in this fifth house, no doubt over the last couple of years, you've been learning about how to manage the things that you get passionate about. I mean, that doesn't sound very exciting or passionate, but Saturn does give that seriousness to things. So maybe you've made your relationships more serious. Maybe you've taken a more active role with your children, or maybe you've got very serious about the career, like your hobby-based career, or your hobbies. Like if you're a guitarist on the sly, you like to strum your guitar. Maybe you've actually done something with it. Saturn wants us to turn things into something more stable. Everything Saturn touches becomes more real and maybe has more value. And so this square between how you value yourself and then what you've done with the things that you're passionate about to me, this square is highlighting that you don't feel so good about the things you've created and the things that you've spent a lot of time forming. Maybe you're not feeling confident about them. So it's an interesting feeling, and it's interesting this comes up because, you know, in a couple of days, you know, a few days later, the new moon in Sagittarius in a conjunction with the Galactic Centre could be just the portal that you need to recognize, okay, I need some kind of mythical or galactic or cosmic help here. I need to put out a call to all my galactic guides or whatever. Now is the time when I'm going to deal with my self-worth, and I'm really open to it now. So, you know, the fact that this comes up before the 20th, I think is helpful, really helpful. And so, yeah, don't be alarmed if you suddenly feel down on yourself, or like, you know, have this sudden crisis of confidence that the presents you've made for people, the cards or something, like something you've made is just like not up to the scratch you were hoping they were going to be up to. This is like, I think, a moment to get over it, you know. And I think the rest of this message will come out in the latter part. I've got more to say about this. But on the 17th, the moon also comes into the sign of Sagittarius. And again, you know, you're still in this world of you and exploring you. The second house is very much about you and your value. But the moon coming in here may well bring up some anxieties about your money and how you're managing your money over the next over the next couple of weeks. You know, this might bring up this feeling of, well, what is my value? How is my value experienced by other people? What do I need to do to increase my value or bring more money in? How do I manage my money? I think it can bring up quite a lot of insecurities about that. But yeah, the moon's coming into Sagittarius, and in the sign of Sagittarius, the moon also is a little bit teenagery. No disrespect if you've got moon in the sign of Sagittarius. It can create this kind of blasé energy where if things feel a bit too difficult, you might just kind of blow it off a little bit and say, oh, don't worry about it. And that's okay. I think that could be quite helpful. But you might find that you're using that kind of let it go thing because you actually just don't know what else to do with it. And so it's you're just trying to create relief for yourself as quickly as possible, and that's valid. On Thursday the 18th, Venus makes a trine to Chiron. Now this is really lovely because Chiron, at the same time that Saturn's been in your 5th house to do with the things you're creating, Chiron has been in your 6th house, and the 6th house is about your day-to-day, like how you manage your work, how you manage your time, how you manage your money, how you manage your washing, your health, your exercise routine, whatever it is. And Chiron can bring us quite a bit of pain here. It's not easy. But so Venus in this trine here, I think, is indicating that irrespective of what's going on, you've made a decision to soothe yourself, to go into a repair and a forgiveness. This to me is a sign of, you know, I recognize that I'm really hard on myself. And I also recognize that I'm a wonderful individual, and, you know, having everything sorted in life doesn't make me a better human. But looking after myself when I'm judgmental of myself actually is a very good thing. So I see that there is this gentle urge to embrace your healing. It's so funny because I received my husband and I in a WhatsApp group, we received a photo from when we'd attended a wedding earlier this year. There's a picture of me and my family with the groom, one of the grooms, and my husband said, "This is lovely," and I said, "Oh yeah, can you just cut half of my body out?" And he said, "Oh my God, you're cutting yourself out of a photo. Like, can't you just embrace the whole divine package?" And that got me thinking. I thought, oh wow, yeah. I wonder how many people do that. I don't suppose it's just me that wants to like cut themselves out somehow because that's your way of coping with maybe not feeling great all the time. But yeah, this Venus in a trine to Chiron is the equivalent of not cutting yourself out, but just embracing the whole package, embracing yourself and thinking, do you know what? This is all I've got. And I love myself exactly the way I am. I think it's a really powerful message. Now, if you're carrying that message into this new moon in Sagittarius, which is all about your self-esteem, all about increasing your value, all about appreciating every part of you, which includes being, going into gratitude. It's very difficult to get into appreciation or want appreciation if you can't even tune into gratitude. But this, in a conjunction to the Galactic Centre, aligned to the center, the very center of our galaxy, to me, this is a very, very powerful portal. Now, if you're entering into this very busy and transforming weekend with the express intention of letting yourself off the hook, not being perfect, and then appreciating every part of yourself so beautifully that you actually make it happen. To me, this is the whole purpose of this new moon. I think it's really quite phenomenal. So on the 20th, this is when this new moon comes in. And soon after that, the moon will go into the sign of Capricorn, sort of indicating, right, it's time to work on it. I felt it. I've imagined it. I'm ready for my new potentials. Now I'm going to take some action. Now, also on the 20th, I'm just going to move my chart across. You'll see that Mercury is making a T-square, an exact T-square with the South Node and also the North Node. Now, the South Node has already shown where you can communicate your value and communicate really quite well with friends. You're a great networker. You've got great skills in place, and you don't need to practice that anymore. You can do that. But what Mercury is currently challenging you with is, how do you talk about your creations? How do you talk about what you're passionate about? How do you share your value in terms of what you're creative about? To me, this is a bit of a learning journey that you're on, and this is something else that's coming up on the 20th to explore. So you might want to include that in with your intention setting. And then finally, on Sunday, the 21st, we're coming into the exact trines. So there's 3 that are showing up. The first is the Sun in a square to Neptune. Now, this can often leave us feeling a little bit lost, a little bit bewildered. It's been coming in for 4 days, and as the Sun dissipates and moves beyond this pattern, it will start to ease off. But at the time, on Sunday the 21st, it's at its peak. So you might just feel a little bit curious about who you are. You might sort of think, well, I don't actually know who I am. All of my thoughts about what I'm about are disappearing. My self-concept is diluting, dissolving. Maybe the things that you thought you were really passionate about, that you spent a lot of time creating for yourself, maybe you realize that was coming out of a fix for your self-esteem. Like, oh, if I do this, then everyone's going to value me more. But yeah, maybe you don't need to do all these things anymore. So I do think you're going to get much clearer about what you're doing for real reasons, for healthy reasons, versus what you're doing because it's a fix for something else. We've also got Venus in a square to Saturn. Exact. Again, this is a time when we can feel a bit disconnected, and we might think, I can't ask for support with this. I don't want support with this. I'm on my own with this pattern. And of course, it's very easy when you're not valuing your self-esteem to cut yourself off from people. And, maybe one of the reasons you do that is because when you actually spend time with people, you usually get appreciated at some level, and you can't hold this self-esteem racket over yourself. I think sometimes people can be quite annoying, because if you're trying to hold this view of yourself, oh, I'm a complete failure. And then everyone else is around you going, no, you're not. I love you. I think you're great. It's really hard to hold these conflicting views. So you might find that you cut yourself off a little bit around the 21st. And if you think you're doing that so that you don't have to be loved and accept love, then I recommend that you maybe hook up, meet up with your friends, meet up with people that really appreciate you. And then the last square, and this square has been going on for some time. It's not about to just disappear either. These are 2 very slow moving planets. So we've got Jupiter, and in fact, Chiron's not actually a planet, but we talk about Chiron as if he is. This square here is really showing where your desire for expansion and to kind of move beyond your current situation is at odds with your everyday life and the frustration that you might have with it. Now, it's interesting that at the end of this week, the moon is also working with both Jupiter and also Chiron. So anywhere where you're feeling like, oh, I haven't done enough, and my next step is to get out there and do more. To me, this is again another racket for you to feel bad about yourself. So, when we go from the start of the week to the end of the week, I really feel that you're experiencing putting yourself down from lots and lots of different angles so that you can absolutely see this pattern so clearly that you maybe stop, or at least get really conscious of it, so you can recognize when you're putting yourself down and think, okay, well, next time I'm going to do something different. It's time for a whole new me. And of course, that leads us into the sun going into the sign of Capricorn, at the solstice. So there you go. That's your whistle stop tour through Monday, the 15th, right the way through to Sunday, the 21st. Like I say, so many changes. And as we go into the next week, it's going to be very, very different, not quite so arduous, not so much to work out. And you'll be really building on this very essential work that you've been doing this week. Now, if you've enjoyed the way I talk about astrology, then you might also like more, and there's tons of it on my community space, which is now freely available. I've been building it, I think, since spring of 2025. And I've enjoyed it, and I still am enjoying it, and I want to enjoy it more with more people. And so I'm now making it free. If you want to join it, all you need to do is either scan the QR code above my head or go to www.school, that's skool.com/feelgoodastrology, and you'll be able to find loads of extra forecasts. Like every week on the school community, I am posting I am posting 29 forecasts every single week on the school community. And if you would like the chance to listen to some of them, then just go over there. There's so much there. So anyway, have a beautiful week ahead, and catch up with you real soon. Lots of love.